Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Izuku had a bone manipulation quirk with one for all. Changes occur in his life when he finally awakens his own quirk. Before we start, thank you for the support in the last video. This really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to leave a like in this video, and you can suggest a My Hero Academia fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 11, Show Me Your Spark. Stadium Arena. Start. Present MIC declared as the audience roared. Both contestants tensed up, ignoring the roaring crowd around them. It'll be dangerous to let him use that power as he likes, Todoroki thought with a serious expression as he sent a wave of ice towards Izuku. But to his surprise, Izuku just stood there for a bit before taking aim, with his index finger being held back. 100% phalanges, he thought as his finger charged up. Smash! He roared with a flash of his eyes before unleashing a powerful burst of air from his finger flick. Asterisk boom asterisk. The wave of ice was instantly destroyed as a powerful gust of wind pushed a surprised Todoroki back. Said teen created a wall of ice to stop him from stepping out of bounds. In the meantime, the crowd felt the cold air from the powerful gust while Todoroki recovered from the blast and looked at Izuku with narrowed eyes. What's he doing? He thought as he eyed Izuku's injured finger. Like everyone else, he was expecting a battle against bones and lasers, not self-injuring attacks. Wow, Midoriya had somehow stopped Todoroki's attack with nothing but a flick. Present MIC announced with surprise in his voice. With All Might. All Might was stunned. He didn't expect Izuku to just abandon control and be reckless. My boy, what are you planning? He thought as he looked at Izuku in worry, clenching his fist, wondering how much damage his predecessor sustained. Stadium Arena. Snapping out his thoughts, Todoroki sent another wave of ice towards Izuku, only for the latter to grit his teeth and take aim with another charged finger. Phalanges smash. He grunted as he sent another blast. Asterisk boom asterisk. The wave of ice was instantly destroyed once again, leaving Todoroki and everyone else confused. With Izuku, he looked to his injured fingers with a pained expression. Just as I thought, my bones are fine, but the same can't be said for everything else, he thought with a grimace as he flexed his fingers a bit, making him wince. The flesh on his fingers looked bruised with a little bit of blood dripping from it. His thoughts were interrupted when Todoroki sent another wave of ice towards him. In response, Izuku immediately took aim once again. Smash! His quick flick resulted in the same thing. After recovering from the gust, Todoroki narrowed his eyes at Izuku. What are you doing, Midoriya? To his chagrin, Izuku gave him a pained grin. I should be asking you the same thing, he said with serious tone, which confused Todoroki more. The bicolored teen then shook his head and started planning another approach, while Izuku responded by taking aim with another finger, waiting for the next ice wave. Class 1A. The students were confused by Izuku's tactic. Sure, it seemed effective. But why injure yourself when you can just use your full power to win? What's Midoribro doing? Kirishima asked as he and the rest looked at the match in confusion. Momo placed a hand on her chin. Perhaps he's trying to tire Todoroki out, she suggested while everyone turned to her. Quirks are physical abilities. If you use it too much, your muscle fibers can tear, she finished with a thoughtful expression. An endurance match, huh? Kirishima thought as he looked to the arena with a bit of sweat. Tokoyami hummed in agreement. A battle between champions, he said in his usual stature, with others silently agreeing. This is crazy, Kaminari nervously added before turning to Mina and the others. Right guys? No response. Guys?" He called out again with a confused expression, only to receive silence again. This caused everyone to turn to the four. Now that they noticed, the four haven't said a word since the match started. Meanwhile, said four were watching the match with serious expressions, or in Mina's case a worried expression. Their earlier conversation in the waiting room was still fresh in their minds. Flashback to waiting room. Izuku's friends were now listening intently, wanting to know exactly what he was planning to do with Todoroki. "I'm going to make Todoroki use his fire," Izuku said with a serious expression. "What?" Mina, Ochako and Ida shouted in shock, while Bakugo looked stunned. The explosive teen's expression was soon replaced with a scowl as he stepped in front of Izuku, who didn't flinch from the action. "Of all the dumb shit that you've pulled, this is by far the dumbest shit you've ever tried to pull," he said with a growl. "He's right," Ida joined in. "If you do that, then your chances of beating him will become slim," he stated in worry while Mina and Ochako nodded in agreement. Truthfully, they didn't want to doubt their friend, but considering the amount of power Todoroki showed so far, it's understandable to think that things will only get worse if he uses his fire. Izuku expected their reactions and calmly replied. "It is a crazy plan," he nodded in agreement, calming them somewhat. "But I want to do this," he stated determinedly, taking them aback before he continued. "Todoroki is powerful, but he's hurting himself by holding his fire quirk back," he stated calmly, while his friends looked at him confused, except for Bakugo, who chose to stay silent. "But why is he holding his fire back in the first place?" Ochako asked, while Ida and Mina looked at Izuku for an explanation, oblivious to Bakugo giving him a serious look. Izuku shrugged as a response. "Beats me, point is I want Todoroki to give me everything he's got when we fight," he sincerely stated, hoping that they don't push the issue. "But why do this?" Ochako asked with a confused expression, while Mina and Ida looked at Izuku with the same expressions. Not noticing Bakugo relax a bit, seeing that the subject changed. After silently thanking for the subject change, Izuku smiled. "I know it isn't my business," he admitted with a shrug. "But isn't meddling when you don't need to the essence of being a hero?" He pointed out with a knowing grin, getting shocked expressions from them. It was a simple phrase, but those words struck them to the core. When they thought about it, he was right. A hero should always help those in need, even if they didn't want their help in the first place. "Midoriya," was all that Ida could say from such an inspiring line. "You're absolutely right," Ochako declared with a big smile as well as a bit of tears. "Damn nerd's right," Bakugo stated with a smirk, getting a grin from Izuku in return. Their voices were silenced when Mina stepped forward and looked at Izuku with a serious expression. Thinking that he was in trouble, Izuku decided to speak up. His statement was cut short when Mina held his face with both hands, before bringing his lips close to hers. He responded by closing his eyes and wrapping his arms around her, bringing her close. After separating, they leaned their foreheads against each other. "For luck," Mina stated with a warm smile. Izuku just gave her a smile before bringing her in for a comforting hug, one that she returned with equal gusto. Ida and Ochako watched the couple with smiles, while Bakugo smirked at their direction. The plan was risky, but if it meant saving someone, then it's worth it. Present time stadium arena. "I'll end this quickly," Todoroki thought before sending another ice wave. Boom *. Which ended with the same results once again. Izuku held his hand with a grunt while it bled a little from his attacks. "How much longer can we keep this up?" He clenched his jaw, as he wasn't able to think when he noticed Todoroki make an ice ramp. Noticing this, Izuku quickly charged 10% and zipped away from where Todoroki would land. Unfortunately, the moment he landed, Todoroki immediately sent an ice wave towards him in great speeds. Seeing that the wave was much larger than before, Izuku quickly charged 100% through his left fist. Prehensile smash! He roared as he punched in the direction of the ice wave. Asterisk boom asterisk. The attack resulted in a massive gust of wind, which instantly destroyed the wave of ice, while sending Todoroki back to his end of the arena, as a result. Izuku clutched his injured hand, keeping himself from screaming. "Welp, there goes my other chances," he panted, before looking at Todoroki with a serious expression. But as Izuku stared at him, he noticed something. His trembling. He thought as he looked at Todoroki's arms in confusion, before his eyes widened in realization. His thoughts were interrupted when Todoroki spoke up. "Thanks, Midoriya," he stated with a misty huff while Izuku stared at him. "That guy's face is clouded over thanks to you," he stated coldly while he looked at his father, who was currently irritated from what he's seeing. This statement, however, caused Izuku to look down in irritation. Is he really going to hold himself back for a stupid reason like that? He yelled in his head. Not fazed by the silence, Todoroki continued. "Let's finish this," he declared in a serious tone, as he sent a final ice wave towards Izuku, who still has his head down. Todoroki keeps attacking with overwhelming power. Here comes the finishing blow. Present MIC yelled to the crowd. The audience held their breath as they saw the wave make its way to Izuku. All Might was looking on in worry. Izuku's classmates, Mina especially, was screaming for him to move out of the way. Todoroki simply waited for the attack to finish. It seemed that the match was already decided. Until Midoriya looked up with crazed glowing eyes. "Who says it's over?" His vicious tone surprised Todoroki until asterisk boom asterisk. The wave of ice was instantly destroyed, creating strong winds in the process. Everyone was stunned by its destruction, especially Todoroki, who was nearly knocked out of the arena from the sudden attack. Luckily for him, he used his ice quirk to save himself in the nick of time. After recovering from the earlier blast, Todoroki looked at Izuku with frustration. Before it was replaced by shock at what he was seeing. "Bastard!" he cursed with a low growl. "With your broken finger," he stated in clear disbelief. "Why are you doing this?" His tone and expression turned frustrated. Izuku gave a strained chuckle that got his attention. Simple, he glanced at his classmates, prompting Todoroki to do the same. "Everyone here is fighting with everything they've got," he turned back to Todoroki, who was still looking at him in disbelief. "To reach for their hopes and dreams," he stated seriously, before giving a pained grin. "Speaking of which," he huffed. "You look a bit chilly over there, buddy," he pointed out with a small chuckle while Todoroki's eyes widened. Not waiting for a response, Izuku continued. "If I were you, I'd start using your left side," he suggested bluntly, which made Todoroki glare at him. "Never," the bicolored teen coldly fired back almost automatically. Izuku sighed as he shook his head. "I am going to be blunt with you," his eyes narrowed. "With what you're doing, it makes it hard for me to give it my all," he shrugged, making Todoroki annoyed. "What are you getting at?" Todoroki asked with a narrowed glare. Noticing that being calm wasn't going anywhere, Izuku's eyes flared up. "I'm saying you shouldn't use half of your strength," he shouted with a serious tone, taking Todoroki aback by the sudden tone as his eyes flared up more. "Come on, Todoroki," he called out as he placed his injured hand to his chest. "Show me the fire in your soul," he roared determinedly as clutched the fabric of his shirt while his voice echoed throughout the stadium. With Class 1A. His classmates were stunned by the sheer power of Izuku's voice. No one expected the class cinnamon roll to have such ferocity. Damn, Kirishima chuckled with a nervous grin. Didn't think the little bro could get so pissed. Bakugo sighed, getting everyone's attention. He isn't pissed, shitty hair. Everyone looked confused. He's fucking determined, he corrected with a serious look. But why would he want Todoroki to use his fire? Momo voiced out everyone's confusion. That would only make the fight harder for him. Bakugo was about to speak, but Mina spoke first. He doesn't want him to hold back, she started, making everyone turn to her. He believes that Todoroki should give everything he's got like everyone so that Izuku could do the same, Kirishima surmised in amazement, before turning to the battlefield. Damn, that's pretty hardcore, he stated in awe. But why go through all this trouble? Tsuyu said with a head tilt, while others looked to them curiously. Ochiko chimed in. Because he wants to save him, she stated simply, while others looked to her even more confused. Seeing their confusion, Ida jumped in. What she means is, everyone turned to him. Midoriya believes that Todoroki is just hurting himself by holding his power back, he supplied, getting shocked looks from everybody. So, he's saving him, from himself, Momo stated in shock, while others were just stunned as they felt their respect for the teen grow. Bakugo sighed, getting their attention. Yeah, he crossed his arms. So unless half and half uses his fire, Deku might get a victory he doesn't even fucking want, he stated with a serious expression. Even he would admit that he would also want Todoroki to use his full power against him. With that statement, they turned their attention back to the match, silently cheering for Izuku's plan to work. Mina, in the meantime, clamped her hands together in worry. It hurt her to see Izuku hurt himself, and although she knew what he was trying to do, it still wasn't easy to watch. Her worries only grew when she saw that Todoroki still hasn't used his fire. And knowing that Izuku would only try harder, made her scared for him. Izuku, she thought in worry, silently hoping the match ends soon. For both their sakes. Stadium Arena. Midoriya. Todoroki called out in anger. What are you planning? He went into his fighting stance. Everything I've got. He repeated as his eyes turned furious as he repeated his words. Did my damn old man buy you off or something? He stated in fury before running to Izuku. Looks like he lost his cool, Izuku thought as he went into his stance before he noticed something wrong. He's slow. He noted the ice coating Todoroki's arms. It must be due to the frost on his body, he finished before focusing when Todoroki got close enough. He can't do anything in close quarters, Todoroki thought as he lunged towards Izuku. Only to be surprised when Izuku zipped to the side. The second I went for it, this guy. He looked at Izuku in surprise as the world seemed to run in slow motion at the moment. Noticing an opening, Izuku charged 5% before he spun his leg around and delivered a blow to Todoroki's abdomen, making sure that he didn't give too much power into it to avoid severely injuring him. A solid hit. Present MIC roared while the audience members cheered. Todoroki felt the wind knocked out of him as he was launched to the other side of the arena. After a rough landing, he coughed a bit before standing up with a glare. Why? He thought before sending another ice wave. Izuku responded with another finger flick from another damaged finger. Asterisk boom asterisk. With Cementos and Midnight. Cementos was currently talking to Midnight through an earpiece. I understand that he has strong bones, but the same can't be said for his skin and muscle fibers. He grimaced. If he keeps going the way he is now, then he could risk severely hurting himself, he finished in worry. Meanwhile, Midnight was in a tough spot too, she wanted to stop the match. But both contestants seemed driven to finish it. Stadium Arena. Boom. Todoroki was once again sent back by another finger flick. Why are you going so far? He staggered as he steadied himself with a grunt. Because I want to save you, Izuku replied with flared eyes, making Todoroki look at him in shock. Like a true hero I want to be. He roared determinedly. But those words struck something within Todoroki. Shoto, came a familiar voice in his head. But before he could register it, Izuku spoke up again. That's why everyone's giving it their all, he declared with a huff, snapping Todoroki out of it. And it pains me to see you like this without giving it your all. Izuku's narrowed eyes glowed. So come on and show me your fire. As Todoroki stared at Izuku, he couldn't help but remember something. Memories. A 5-year-old Todoroki is currently weeping in his mother's arms. The duo had just experienced more physical abuse from Endeavor. I don't wanna, Mom. He gripped her shirt tighter. I don't want to be like Dad. He sniffed. I don't want to become someone who bullies you, Mom. He cried into her shirt. His mother calmly responded by rubbing his head in comfort. But you want to be a hero, don't you? She asked in a knowing tone, making Todoroki look up to her. It's okay for you to be one, she encouraged with a gentle smile. As long as you have a future you feel strongly about, she finished in the same tone. Stadium Arena. Todoroki was brought back into reality when Izuku spoke again. It was then he noticed how close he got. That's why if you don't use it, he delivered a powerful kick to Todoroki's stomach. I'll end up surpassing you. Todoroki was sent rolling back, gasping for air. I will reject my old man's power, he breathed out as he slowly got back up, but Izuku could feel him hesitate in his statement. Just a bit more, Izuku thought as his eyes glowed and breathed in. It's your power, isn't it? He roared, his voice once again echoing throughout the stadium. From his spot, Todoroki snapped at Izuku with wide eyes. Those words. He thought before a memory played in his head. Memories. Young Todoroki sat in his mother's lap, as they watched a live interview with All Might in it. Yes, that's right. All Might replied back. Children inherit quirks from their parents. But the really important thing is not that connection, but recognizing your own flesh and blood, recognizing yourself. That's what I mean when I say, I am here. He declared with a big smile. While Todoroki looked on in awe. His mother in the meantime, watched him fondly as she rubbed his head. Present time Stadium Arena. You don't have to be a prisoner of your blood. Todoroki stared at Izuku with wide eyes. It felt like the chains within him were slowly being released as a familiar feeling started rising. It's okay for you to become who you want to be. And before he knew it, he was free. BNHA Jet Set Run Plays. Whoosh asterisk. The ice on Todoroki's side melted away, as the fire within him erupted and covered the stage while Izuku stared at it in amazement, before a big smile formed on his face. Finally, he thought in relief with a small laugh. Class 1A. Everyone was surprised by the sudden eruption, but one thing's for certain, Izuku had succeeded. HH's using fire. Ochako called out as she tried to shield herself from the blinding light and the heat that came with it. He's finally using it, Ida stated in shock as he looked to the arena in amazement. Before Ochako could speak, she noticed Mina with tears in her eyes. Mina! She called out in worry. However, all her fears vanished when she saw a smile form on Mina's face. He did it, she said with relief and happiness before wiping her eyes. Ochako responded by giving her a comforting hug while others looked just as relieved. Yeah, Bakugo nodded with a sigh. Now the real battle finally begins, he declared with a smirk. Realizing what he meant, everyone turned to the arena with excitement. With the pros. All Might watched the scene with wide eyes. He made him use his left. He thought before looking on with a serious expression. Young Midoriya, don't tell me you were trying to save young Todoroki all this time. He thought in half shock and amazement. Aizawa ignored the flames and looked to Izuku in amazement. He recognized that he essentially pushed Todoroki to go beyond himself. Stadium Arena. Izuku eyed the flames in awe until Todoroki spoke. Even though you want to win. He started, getting Izuku's full attention. To help your enemy. He was still blazing as the ice on his arm completely melted away. I want to be a hero too, he declared with a serious expression, as thick vapor trails emanated from his left while a blazing fire burned from his right. Izuku beamed at the declaration and gave him a big grin, while Todoroki responded by giving a big grin of his own. Shoto! Endeavor roared with a malicious smile from the sidelines, as his flames flared up. Fortunately, the contestants were too focused on each other to hear the rant the pro went on. Wow! Izuku chuckled in amazement. Things are finally heating up, his laughter increased with joy. And to his surprise, Todoroki gave a small chuckle of his own. You're crazy, the fire and ice teen bluntly stated with a shake of his head, though he was smiling. Izuku gave a small laugh as he closed his eyes. Yeah, I'm pretty crazy, he shrugged as he opened one glowing eye. But then again, I do want to be a hero, he casually pointed out with his signature grin. Todoroki gave him a small smile, before it was replaced by a serious expression. Don't blame me for what happens next, he gravely warned while Izuku took note of the warning and charged 10% before leaping a great distance away from the young hero. Todoroki's fire increased in intensity, as he sent a much larger ice wave towards Izuku. From his point of view, it looked like the giant ice was about to encase the OFA user, giving him. His thoughts were interrupted when he saw a faint green glow from the other side. ****. And before he knew it, the giant ice wave was destroyed in an instant, sending a great gust of wind from its destruction. Todoroki found himself standing his ground, as he was enveloped by mist from the destroyed ice wave. Once the mist cleared, his eyes widened when he saw that Izuku's eyes were closed with a big grin, while behind him was a large blaster, with smoke coming out of its mouth as it growled. Izuku chuckled, snapping Todoroki out of his shock. Back at you, buddy, he casually replied before opening his eyes, his scleras dark again. I don't plan on holding back anymore either, he declared with a smirk. Todoroki wasn't fazed by the sudden eye change, and returned Izuku's smirk. Come at me then, he challenged in serious tone before firing a massive fire blast. Izuku responded by summoning a Gaster blaster around his right arm, and immediately took aim. Megalo. He narrowed his eyes before widening them with a flash. Smash! He was pushed back a bit, as he fired a beam that pierced through the flames, splitting them apart, as it traveled towards Todoroki. Noticing the beam fast approaching, Todoroki immediately formed a large wall of ice, in the hopes of shielding himself. ****. Todoroki gritted his teeth, as the impact from the beam destroyed the wall almost instantly, leaving a gap that gradually increased, as the wall melted before crumbling on itself. Beyond the ruined wall was a thick fog of vapor that dispersed, revealing that Izuku was nowhere in sight. What dash before he could ask aloud, Todoroki found himself instinctively making a small ice wall behind him. ****. Quickly turning around, he saw that the ice wall had stopped a bone club from smacking him on the side. Following the handle, he saw Izuku holding it with his good hand. Heya, he greeted with an easy grin. Did you miss me? he said with a small chuckle. Todoroki responded by sprouting ice from the ground, forcing Izuku to jump back. Following up the momentum, he aimed it with his left arm and fired a massive attack. ****. Feeling that it was enough, Todoroki ceased his attack to see the damage. When his vision cleared, Izuku was nowhere to be seen again. Having a gut feeling, he turned around to see Izuku standing at the other side with two medium blasters by his sides. With a flash from his eyes, Izuku's blasters made their way to Todoroki as they charged their attacks. ****. He really was holding back, Todoroki thought as he braced himself for the weapons. When one of the blasters arrived first, he immediately formed an ice barrier to hold off the blast. ****swoosha***. ****crash***. Todoroki gritted his teeth as he shielded himself from the shards of the destroyed barrier, pieces of it melting away from coming in contact with his flaming arm. He was about to retaliate when he remembered there were two blasters. Quickly turning around, he saw the second blaster already about to fire. ****swoosha***. By the skin of his teeth, he just avoided a serious blow from the laser by leaning to the side. Unfortunately, his evasion wasn't perfect as his left shoulder was grazed from the attack, and with a grunt, Todoroki looked at Izuku, who was just standing there with a grin on his face. However, as he stared at him, Todoroki realized some things. Before he used his fire, he wasn't able to land a single blow on Izuku with his ice. The latter's earlier injuries were self-inflicted. And now that he wasn't holding back, he still isn't able to freeze or burn Izuku in any way. Meanwhile, he was being beaten around and forced to shield himself more times than he can count. Realizing this, he felt his situation to be hopeless against Izuku. But he quickly shook off these lingering thoughts. He wanted to be a hero. And a hero never gives in despite the gaps in abilities. Hey! His thoughts were interrupted when he saw Izuku smiling at him. "Wanna settle this?" he asked with a grin. Todoroki returned the grin. "I thought you'd never ask," he stated seriously before his quirks intensified. Izuku responded in kind by charging a great amount of OFA throughout his body, his eyes glowing with intensity as his grin turned daring. "Come on, Todoroki," he challenged before running towards Todoroki. "Let the flames in your heart roar," he declared before leaping towards him. Todoroki responded by flaring up his left and focused it to his palm, which resulted in the ice around him melting away. Off to the side, Cementos and Midnight started using their quirks to try and minimize the damage while the two fighters were getting closer. "Prehensile," Izuku thought in the air as he reared his fist back. "Midoriya," Todoroki thought as the blaze in his palm maximized. At this point he looked like a stationary thruster. "Smash!" Izuku thrusted his fist forward with a daring grin. "Thank you," Todoroki finished as he brought his hand forward to meet the teen's fist with a small smile. But before they could collide, Cemento's walls appeared between them. ***boom***. Song ends. The explosion that followed was so large that the audience was forced to shield themselves from the incoming shockwave. Class 1A. The class braced themselves against the strong winds that resulted from the clash. What the heck? Minato yelled as he was nearly blown away. Thankfully Shoji held onto him. "Man, seriously?" Kaminari said aloud as he shielded himself. "What's happening?" Momo yelled as her vision was blurred by the wind. The rest weren't faring any better, as they found themselves either shielding their eyes or bracing themselves. Once the shaking stopped, they looked back to the arena, only for it to be covered by a dense fog. A result from all the ice melting away. Where are they? Juru asked, evidently still shocked from the earlier clash. Before they could say anything, Ochako noticed something in the corner of her eye. "I see something," she yelled, prompting everyone to look to where she was pointing. As the fog started clearing up, they had a full view of who Ochako saw. Once they did, they couldn't help but be shocked by what they are seeing. Todoroki was slumped unconscious against the wall out of bounds. From what they can tell, he slammed against it. "If that's Todoroki," Kirishima started before looking around. "Where's Midoribro?" He was met with silence as everyone looked to whatever clearing they can spot, hoping to find any sign of their cinnamon roll. Mina herself was looking at every clearing she can see. Her worry only grew the longer Izuku was nowhere to be found. Thankfully, before she could feel any worse, she spotted something in the center of the arena. "There!" she yelled with relief in her voice, prompting everyone to look at what she was seeing. Only to be stunned by the scene. Stadium arena. The audience was also stunned, having a full view of the arena as well. Izuku was slumped over against a barrier of bones. Like Todoroki's earlier strategy, he sprouted bones from the ground to save himself from launching off the arena. Before midnight could announce a draw, Izuku groaned as he shakily stood up from his position. And after noting that Todoroki was beaten, he turned to his classmates, specifically Mina, and gave her a shaky thumbs up, accompanied by his signature grin, his eyes already back to normal. Midnight shook herself from her shock and raised her whip. "Todoroki Shoto is out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya wins." The crowd then erupted in cheers with Izuku's class joining in as well, and among them, Mina was giving him a watery smile. All Might grinned with pride whereas Endeavor looked pissed beyond belief. Not a second later, the medical staff arrived to take both teens to Recovery Girls Clinic. Recovery Girl's office. After being royally chewed out by Recovery Girl, and being congratulated by All Might, Izuku laid on his bed, while Todoroki was sleeping in his. From his position, Izuku looked at his right hand with a sigh, examining the scars he got after the battle. Welp, it was worth it, he thought with a shrug and a smile. With a grunt, he got up from his bed and changed into fresh clothes, since the ones from his earlier battle were severely damaged. Once finished, Izuku was about to head out when he heard a noise behind him. Turning around, he saw Todoroki sitting up with his stoic expression. They stared at each other for a relatively long silence, until Izuku decided to speak. "Ah, good day, Sleeping Beauty," he started with an awkward chuckle. Only to stop when Todoroki just kept staring at him with a stoic expression. "Sheesh, tough crowd," he thought with a sweat drop. Izuku then cleared his throat. "That's you're cute to laugh," he prompted with a crooked grin. "Or to emote at all," he nervously added. Todoroki just kept staring at him with his stoic expression. Understanding the hint, Izuku gestured his thumb to the exit. "Well, I gotta go, rest well buddy," he said with a smile before turning around and making his way out. "Midoriya." Izuku looked over his shoulder to see Todoroki staring at him with the same expression. "Thank you." Izuku fully turned to face him. "For making me realize that this power has always been mine and never that old man's," he said with a small smile. "Anytime, bud," Izuku replied with a friendly grin while Todoroki nodded to him. Before they could do anything else, the door opened, revealing to be Mina and the others. The pink teen immediately rushed in and gave Izuku a hug. "You had me worried, mister," she said while burying her head in his chest. "Sorry about that," Izuku soothed with a tone of guilt as he wrapped his arms around her. "I just didn't like seeing him that way," he admitted while others smiled at him. In the meantime, Bakugo just wore a serious expression. Mina separated from the embrace when she noticed Izuku's hand, prompting him to show everyone else. Ochako and Ida winced from the scars while Bakugo looked at his hand with a scowl. Meanwhile, Todoroki looked guilty. What have I done? He looked at his lap with a remorseful expression. Because of me, his dash. Stop. Hearing her voice, Todoroki snapped up, expecting an angered Mina, but to his surprise she was giving him a look of understanding. There's no use beating yourself up over it, she encouraged with a kind smile. This was Izuku's choice, so don't feel bad about it. Just focus on being better. With a shocked expression, he glanced at Izuku's friends, only to see them nodding in understanding. Even Bakugo gave him a look of understanding as well. Thank you, Todoroki replied, not expecting them to be fine with him hurting Izuku. Mina nodded to him with a smile, before turning to Izuku with a sigh. Before the latter could say anything, she gave him a quick flick on the forehead that made him yelp before he rubbed the sore spot with a pout. Try not to scare me like that again, you bonehead, she scolded in a semi-stern tone, as she placed her hands on her hips with narrowed eyes. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, as he gave a small chuckle. I'll try, he agreed with a sheepish expression. Mina's expression softened, as she gently grabbed his scarred hand. Sorry, she soothed while caressing his hands with her thumbs, eyeing the scars while doing so. I just can't help but get worried, you know, she admitted before looking up to him with a warm smile. I know, Izuku said with a smile of his own before giving her a kiss on the forehead. While Ochako, Ida and Todoroki looked to the couple with smiles. The warm atmosphere was interrupted when Bakugo stepped forward and stood in front of Todoroki's bed, making everyone tense, thinking that he was going to hurt Todoroki despite still recovering. Before Izuku could say anything, Bakugo raised a hand, indicating that there wasn't anything to be worried about. Trusting his childhood friend, Izuku calmed down, prompting everyone else to calm down and listen intently. I'm going to say this once, Bakugo started, getting their full attention. So listen and listen good, he scowled. If Deku gets hurt again, because of some bullshit like that, he brought his hands up with a growl. Then you're fucked, understand? He warned while making small explosions from his palms. While Mina and the others felt nervous, Izuku felt oddly touched as he looked at Bakugo with a smile. Todoroki showed no emotion as he met Bakugo's intense gaze. Not trusting his words, he gave a nod indicating that he understood what the explosive teen was getting at. He can tell that Bakugo didn't want Deku to be hurt again, while at the same time he wanted him to use his fire more often. Tough love, eh? Bakugo grunted with a nod before joining the others, who were still processing what just happened. Noticing the mood, Izuku decided to lighten it. Lighten up, Kaken, he chimed in with a grin, snapping everyone out of their earlier shock. I heard some people dig scars, he shrugged. Bakugo snapped a glare at him. Who the fuck goes for that? He fired back in annoyance. Ladies like me for one, Mina answered with a chuckle before giving Izuku a quick kiss on the lips while the latter gave her a sweet smile. Bakugo just groaned as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Why do I have to put up with these two? Ochako and Ida shook their heads with a smile at the couple's attempt to lighten the mood while Todoroki went into deep thought about something. The doors suddenly opened, prompting everyone to look at it. The mood was interrupted once again, tension quickly replacing the warmth of the atmosphere, as Endeavor marched in with a serious expression. Mina, Ochako and Ida looked worried, feeling how the mood suddenly dropped from his arrival. While Izuku, Bakugo and Todoroki wore hardened expressions. The hell do you want? Bakugo said with a growl, trying his best not to send the pro to Kingdom Come. While everyone else tensed from the explosive teen's tone. Endeavor wasn't fazed as he kept staring at Todoroki. I came to talk to my son, he curtly answered before he started making his way to the front of Todoroki's bed. Not seeing the murderous gaze from Bakugo. Only for Endeavor's route to be cut off when Izuku stood between him and Todoroki, with a serious expression, while his friends were stunned by his action. The pro simply narrowed his eyes at the teen. "Step aside," he ordered with authority. "Can't, sorry," Izuku casually denied with a shrug. Shocking Mina, Ochiko and Ida, while Bakugo and Todoroki smirked a bit. "Why not?" Endeavor said as his tone slowly showed annoyance. "What's my son to you?" he questioned as he literally and figuratively fumed. "I'm his friend," Izuku simply replied with a calm tone, not seeing the look of surprise from Todoroki. Endeavor glared at Izuku before sighing a bit. "Fine," and before anyone could react, he held up a finger. "But the others need to leave," he added in a serious tone. Bakugo was about to tell him off before Izuku nodded in agreement. "Fine," he said in a calm tone while Mina and the others looked hesitant. Noticing this, Izuku gave them an encouraging smile. "It's fine, guys," he assured while they still looked apprehensive, but eventually nodded and made their way out of the room. Bakugo gave Izuku and Todoroki one more look before following the group. Once they were gone, Endeavor turned to Todoroki with a proud smile, while Izuku leaned against a nearby wall with his arms crossed. "You've finally abandoned your childish tantrum and become a perfect upgrade of me," he proudly proclaimed as he approached his son's bed. "Oh brother," Izuku thought with an eye roll as he kept his guard up, expecting words of praise from a megalomaniac like Endeavor. Endeavor then offered a hand to Todoroki, who just stared at it, while Izuku raised an eyebrow. "After you graduate, come work for me," the pro's smile grew. "I'll lead you down the path of the mighty," he offered with a look that just screamed power-hungry to Izuku. There was a brief silence until Todoroki shook his head. "No," he replied before looking at his left hand, making Izuku smile and Endeavor confused. "The only reason I used my left side was because at that moment," he then looked at Endeavor right in the eyes. "I forgot about you," his declaration shocked the pro. "Oh snap," Izuku thought as he tried to hide his amused expression, there's always something satisfying about seeing the right people getting verbally owned. Todoroki continued. "Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing." Endeavor was still stunned to respond. "I need to think about it," he finished with his usual expression. Endeavor then snapped out his shock as he scowled at Todoroki and with a grunt, he walked out of the infirmary, leaving the two teens behind. Well, that went well, Izuku blurted out with a chuckle after a few moments of silence while Todoroki shook his head at him with a light laugh. A second later, Mina and everyone else entered the room with confused looks while Bakugo followed with a frown. What was that about, Izu? Mina asked while Ida and Ochako looked at him for an explanation. Whereas Bakugo just looked serious. From the corner of his eye, Izuku noticed Todoroki becoming tense from the question. He cleared his throat. I just had a gut feeling that things would go south if I left Todoroki alone is all, he replied sincerely, making the three confused. Before they could say anything, Todoroki spoke up. Thank you, Midoriya. Everyone turned to him. What you did meant a lot, he stated with a grateful expression. Anytime, I mean, that's what friends are for, right? Izuku rhetorically asked with a grin while Mina and the others smiled at him. Meanwhile, Bakugo gave him a smirk, understanding that they wanted to keep the others from prying. Thankfully, this served to drive their attention away from Endeavor, labeling it as something that Izuku wanted to do for his own reasons. Friends, huh? Todoroki pondered the idea for a moment before smiling. But before anything else, Ochako remembered something. Oh, that reminds me, she snapped her fingers with a gasp, getting their attention. Don't you have a match, Ida? She turned to the class president with a curious look. Indeed I do, Ida replied calmly. In fact, it'll begin shortly, he notified with a glance at his watch. Izuku chuckled, getting their attention. Well then, what are we waiting for? He said with a grin, while others nodded before heading out to watch Ida's match. Tenya vs. Ibara. The match played out the same as canon. Welp, that was quick, Izuku said with a small chuckle, while others nodded in agreement. The match started out strong for Ibara, but with Ida's quirk he was able to run past her vines and simply push her out of the ring. It took her several moments before she even realized that she was out of the ring as Midnight announced her defeat. Izuku and his fellow classmates made sure to congratulate him for his efforts. Mina vs. Tokoyami. The match played out the same as canon. Damn, Izuku grimaced as he watched his girlfriend make her way towards the tunnel. Noticing her friend's disappointment, Ochako placed a hand on her shoulder. It's all right, Izuku, I mean she did her best, she encouraged with others nodding in agreement. Izuku turned to her with a smile. I know, he agreed before looking at the arena with a frown. I just wished she won, you know. Ochako nodded in understanding. Deku, Bakugo suddenly called out. Izuku glanced at him with a curious look. Yeah, bud, he replied while others turned to Bakugo as well. I'm going to kick your ass, Bakugo declared with a serious expression. Well, that was blunt, Izuku chuckled while others were taken aback by his claim. Bakugo growled from his response. Take the hint, you damn nerd, he said with annoyance while everyone looked to him confused. Izuku was silent for a bit before realization hit him. Is this your declaration of war? He guessed with an amused look while others looked shocked from the declaration. No, it's a peace treaty, Bakugo corrected with a straight face before slamming his fist on his armrest in a huff. Of course it's a fucking declaration of war. He roared while others reeled back from the sudden volume in his voice as he continued. I'm going to kick your ass and claim the top spot in the festival. He challenged with a vicious expression while Izuku looked intrigued. Ida jumped in. Don't count me out yet, Bakugo, he interjected, getting most of the students to turn to him. I still have a shot to defeat Izuku later, he stated with determination. Bakugo still had his eyes on Izuku. What's your damn answer? He demanded with a growl, not seeing the shocked expression from Ida. He's ignoring me. Ida thought before he sulked while Ochako chuckled a bit, as she gave him a pat on the back with a semi-sympathetic expression. Izuku shrugged. Sure, why not? He grinned as his eyes glowed a bit while Bakugo smirked. Meanwhile the class, minus Ida who continued to sulk, looked between the two with nervous expressions. After what they've seen so far in Izuku's match, they can only imagine the amount of damage the dynamic duo can do when faced against each other. One thing's for sure, it was going to be an explosive end to the festival.